Live from the 607, it is the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking sports locally and nationally. Why don't you join in the conversation with the hashtag ODPH? Here we go. Welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, hashtag ODPH podcast. I am your host, Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
And joining us in studio, it's your coach, my coach, the coach, Coach Duffy.
Anything been happening this week? I mean, what are we even going to talk about this week?
Tim Tebow, I saw, is going to be, AAA, Syracuse?
Yeah, he's going to be starting in
local,
Syracuse.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, it's kind of the biggest sports story that we can talk about here because that's what this edition of the podcast is going to be this week. So hit us up, interact with us, hashtag ODPH, because the biggest sports story of the week is not Tebow going to Syracuse. No.
No, you thought we weren't going to mention it.
Yeah, but we were definitely going to mention it because I know Sound Guy Galore JR is eagerly anticipating opening day. No, we have to talk about NFL free agency. And
holy crap.
And I can't hold the coach back any longer. Coach, break it down for us.
Guys, Giants fans, gather around. It's been a rough, I don't even know how many hours since free agency started.
Not even 24.
Yeah, since Friday, really. I mean, listen, Friday started off really. All right, so I'm just going to recap real quick what the Giants have done, and kind of we'll go from there.
Get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, on Friday, the Giants make the announcement of the initial trade for Olivier Vernon for the guard from Cleveland, starting right guard. Solid move for the Giants. They needed to get away from Olivier Vernon's contract. They needed to re-shore up the offensive line. A move that looked like they're trying to win now, right? All right, so Gettleman, good move. Saturday, and then late Friday comes. Landon Collins leaves the Giants for free to a division rival in the Washington Redskins. That move was a head-scratcher.
Yeah.
Now, everybody's talking, so Landon Collins, terrible against the pass, very good against the run, coming off of a major shoulder surgery. His cap hit, if they would have franchised him, would have been $11 million.
Okay.
He's making $11 million in Washington right now, the going market. The rumors come out now that a team had called the Giants at the trade deadline offering a first-round pick. I'm not a general manager, but in the back of my mind, if you're already knowing what his cap hit's going to be, because you can project going into the year what a franchise tag is going to be.
They pay people to figure that out.
Right, exactly. Don't you think if you know whether you're going to sign him or not in the offseason, you're going to make a move at the trade deadline?
You would think,
right?
Yeah.
Especially if you know you're going to let him go for free. If a team calls you and says, "Hey, we want to give you a first-round pick," don't you say, "Okay"?
Yeah, like you have my attention.
Yeah, sure. Yep, nothing. So, bye, Landon Collins. Enjoy Washington. I'll miss you. You were my favorite Giant.
But that's not even the biggest news because, like I say, the biggest news in sports is NFL free agency. But the Giants have made some moves, and dare I say, now we're going into what rock the internet. In the past 24 hours as we're recording?
Well, I mean, yeah, so the offensive linemen that were signed on Saturday, sure up the offensive line, great. And then everything looks like win now minus the Landon Collins move. Now Tuesday night happens.
Yep.
Well, Tuesday morning, Jay Glazer comes out. Rumor has it the Giants are shopping Odell Beckham. Everybody, no, it's not true.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't this like in a mailbag thing that it was like some art? He was like answering a mailbag, quote unquote, like you see on articles a lot, where it's like people asking questions and he goes through that, and he just kind of threw it out there because it was something he had heard.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, literally all it was he had heard that teams were approaching the Giants, but no serious talks had happened, and then all of a sudden things escalated. And then Tuesday night at 8:30, it was.
Not even. The
text message or notification goes around the world that the Giants had traded Odell Beckham to Cleveland.
No, it wasn't even 8:30. It was before 8:30 because Ken M and I were getting together to watch The Flash on TV.
Okay.
And we had literally just sitting down to relax, and I'd opened my phone and I opened Twitter, and the first thing I see is Bleacher Report, Odell Beckham Jr. traded to the Browns. And my first words were, holy shit.
So it must have been 7:30. I must have
7:30,
daylight savings time.
7:45.
It was somewhere there in that variation, and dare I say, I mean, that's the biggest move thus far of all free agency.
And then Facebook was all sorts of wild for the better part of an hour.
Yeah, because if you want to break it down, and I know I'm jumping in on you, Coach.
Oh, you're fine. I'll go into it in a minute here.
Just to see that Odell Beckham Jr. is now traded to Cleveland, who has completely revamped their offense. And they traded their number 1 pick this year.
Yep.
Number 17 pick.
I believe the number 3 next year.
No, this year. 93rd pick in the third round.
It was the 17th overall pick in the first round this year, and also the 2019 third round pick, number 95, like Coach said.
95.
And Jabril Peppers.
And Jabril Peppers.
Was
the safety.
Was mixed in for Odell Beckham Jr., now coming to Cleveland and reuniting with Jarvis Landry.
Mm-hmm.
Baker Mayfield's wide receiver core is now arguably one of the best in football.
Looking good.
I mean, yeah, you have to say it's probably the top 5.
So you have fans in Cleveland asking if the stadium there goes into triple digits on the scoreboard.
It could happen, obviously, with the talent they have. And, I mean, the running back, they've added Kareem Hunt. They have Nick Chubb, who is a proven star in the making in the backfield now. So, I mean, everything is looking like Cleveland is definitely making progress going into the start of the season. But now with the Giants, Coach, I'm handing the mic back to you.
Let me give you the womp here. So now you've traded your best wide receiver for a first-round pick, and you still have a 38-year-old Eli Manning as your quarterback. So what is the message that you're giving here? Like, are you rebuilding, or are you trying to win now? So besides all that, here's my biggest concern. The Giants are sending a contingency to Kyler Murray's pro day that's happening, I believe, on tomorrow or Saturday.
Okay.
I believe so. It's soon.
And Arizona is not sending a team there, a contingency there. So my biggest concern right now is that first round pick that they have, that's number 6, and now number 17 is going to be part of a package to move up to the first pick to get Kyler Murray. And all right, Kyler Murray's great, and I think he's going to make a fine pro. My biggest concern, though, is that I don't want them to trade this draft away just to land Kyler Murray when Haskins could be there at 6.
I'll say I'm sitting there looking at the draft order as it stands, and of course you have the Arizona Cardinals number 1. They need a quarterback. San Francisco 49ers at number 2. They don't need one. New York Jets at number 3. They need one. Oakland Raiders at number 4. Don't need one. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 5. Don't need one. And then you have the New York Football Giants at number 6.
Well, Zona and the Jets just drafted quarterbacks last year.
Yeah,
so
I was gonna mention that.
That's true. That's true.
So, I mean, and the Jets, so with the whole thing is that Rosen, all right, might not be the guy for that the offense that they're going to run this year in Arizona, which Kyler Murray fits that scheme and everything. Just my concern is that the Giants are enamored with him, that they're going to trade this first and the 2 first-round picks and maybe even that third to try and make a package to jump up. And I don't want them to do that because Haskins is going to be there hopefully at 6. And if not at 6, they can easily jump to 3 where the Jets were, and the same move the Jets made last year. And all the Jets had to give up was the first-round pick that they had that year, which was ironically 6, and then 2 second-round picks that year and the year after.
Yeah, I mean, this year is kind of an odd one for the draft situations because a lot of teams have made moves. And with Arizona, they drafted Josh Rosen last year. We don't know if he's going to be the guy or not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of speculation that Kyler Murray has, jumped up and claimed the number 1 draft status. I don't know. I honestly don't know what Arizona is going to do. Would they want to trade out of this right now? Do they want to stay there? Because obviously Murray is enticing a lot of teams.
Well, my worry is with them not sending somebody to the pro day, that kind of signals right there. Either they're comfortable enough making that selection by film and what they saw at the combine, and they don't need to send somebody to the pro day, or they're like, you know what, he's not our guy, and we're going to go with Bosa, or we're going to trade out of it.
It's a lot of question marks going into it. But with the Giants, I mean, obviously they got to make plans for post Eli.
Yeah,
they got to do something.
Yeah.
And if they're mortgaging the farm on this is a very high risk, high reward.
This is throwing your chips in the poker game.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, who do they got to throw to?
Well, that's the question.
Yeah.
I mean, if they want to go with Haskins, who I think will be there at 6, I don't think they need to trade
Yeah,
him.
exactly.
I don't think they need to. But if you're going to give up Odell Beckham Jr., you're arguably him and Barkley are your 2 major weapons on offense.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, they were.
Yeah. I mean, no, but if
50% of the offense was ran for the 2 of them.
Hand the ball off to Barkley once or twice, and then you can throw deep to Beckham. He sets it up perfectly.
Right, but if you're going to get rid of one of them, you have to find a replacement for him. And obviously, the wide receiver depth chart of free agents to replace somebody on Odell's level isn't there right now.
It's non-existent.
And then are you going to find somebody in the draft that can match that production right away? Arguably, no. arguably.
Right, right.
So you gotta have to figure, okay, what's the Giants doing? And if they are gonna trade up, I mean, if they have fallen in love with Murray to go move heaven and earth to get up and go get him,
right?
You have to make sure he's the guy,
right?
And
yeah.
Because if you miss on a number one draft pick quarterback, this could put your franchise back years,
a long time.
I mean, I can't even. It's head scratching because 1 minute Gettleman's making moves that seem like it's going to be win now, and then the next minute they're making moves that look like it's going to be a rebuild. I know that whatever they're doing right now is putting them in a position, but it's like why have to sacrifice and go 4-12 to get there? I mean, if there's quarterbacks in this draft class that I feel are comparable that can't compete. So if your whole thing is, all right, we're going to let Eli have his last ride and everything and play for Tua, I mean, that's not the right approach. And as a fan, that upsets me greatly because this is a franchise that is 6-7 years removed from their last Super Bowl, and they're only 3 years removed from making it to the playoffs. So it's not like this team doesn't have a core group that's there that can win. It's head scratching from the standpoint of, what are you doing? What is the message? And I mean, I know it just came out now. Gettleman had a press release that said this is part of the plan. What plan?
It's like getting back to your point, yes, they're not far removed from the playoffs and not far removed from the Super Bowl. This isn't exactly the Cleveland Browns, who haven't made the playoffs or the Super Bowl since before Nam.
Would you have to kind of put in perspective here, though, with Cleveland? Ever since Dorsey took over as GM, they've been making moves that have really improved their team. I mean, everybody was looking last year when they took Baker Mayfield, and everybody was saying they needed to take Barkley, or Darnold.
Yeah, everybody was Darnold.
Yeah, everybody was screaming about it. And Darnold, I mean, the jury is still out.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly how he's going to fare. He's been he's shown flashes of brilliance with the Jets.
Oh, yeah.
Has it been consistent? No, but then again,
he was a rookie.
What rookie is?
Yeah.
What rookie comes out of the gate and is perfect?
Right.
Nobody is. So for Cleveland, when they took Mayfield and they really relied on him to build the culture, obviously you can see they're doing things in the right direction, because now Cleveland is telling their fan base, hey, we're tired of losing. We're here to win. Mayfield, the minute he got in there, was, I'm tired of losing. I want to make this city a winner. And they're embracing it. And just to be a Cleveland fan right now,
you're cloud nine.
You have to be. This is the first time in years that now players are wanting to come there. And let's put something else in perspective. Beckham Jr. has been traded. He hasn't said, I'm not going to go there. I don't want to play there.
He wants to play with Jarvis. He wants to play with Landry.
Right. But because the culture has changed.
Well, and not only to mention that, and then as a Cleveland fan, then you look at and you see what's going on in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. You see what's going on in Baltimore.
Yeah.
I mean, you right now have to feel like you are the class of the AFC North right now.
Yeah.
Without real true competition.
I would say gone are the days where Pittsburgh can simply waltz through the regular season and make it into the playoffs. You look at the moves Cleveland has made. You look at the moves Baltimore has made. Pittsburgh is no longer in a scenario where they can just, play to their strengths and, we might lose a game or two out of the division, but we're going to walk through the division like it's a Sunday stroll.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that has been long in the making. I mean, Cleveland has gone through many years of losing and not getting near the playoffs.
The image in the rearview mirror has been slowly approaching, but the other teams in the AFC North have found the accelerator, and all of a sudden they're right on top of them.
Well, I mean, let's not forget Cleveland was only a game away from making the playoffs last
true.
year.
Yeah,
this is true.
So now you add OBJ, and I mean, listen, I know I crushed Vern in the beginning, but I mean, he was the only defensive lineman that the Giants had. So I mean, the offensive line can focus on Vernon and double team him and everything, or chip him, and it was tough for him to get to the quarterback. I mean, the Giants were I believe they were last in sacks last year. So I mean, now having paired with a solid defensive line like Cleveland had last year, I mean, he might actually be able to produce because he won't be the focused attention on a bad defensive line, but now a good one.
Plus, you go from a media market like New York, where the Giants were getting lambasted on a daily basis in the newspapers and on talk radio and whatnot, to a media environment like Cleveland, where it ain't nothing but sunshine and upside, where they're very excited, and you go into the scenario like with Cleveland, where, hey, we got something going here.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's all been said about, Odell and his attitude and everything, but I mean, while the antics and everything could be tiresome and childish, I guess you can say, it's like, he's just a passionate guy who just wore it on his sleeves, and I mean, I respected the hell out of that. No different than Baker Mayfield.
Yeah,
no different than that.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
I mean, my love for Baker has been very noted on the show. So I mean, I'm going to miss Odell, and I'm going to miss what he brought. But at the same time, let's not forget, he's only played one full season.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's been heavily injury prone.
We have to wait and see. I mean, this is going to be the big question.
Yeah, no. And that's why it's like, oh, God, they traded Odell. But it's like, and last night while we were texting and I was on Twitter and everything, my initial reaction was like, what's going on? Now, since then, and I've had time to digest, my biggest concern is just April in the draft.
Yeah.
Well, it has to be because now, I mean, obviously with free agency going on at this moment, and teams are still making moves as we were recording. This is the biggest one thus far. Like, I honestly thought nothing was going to be bigger than the Antonio Brown move.
Yeah.
And we will talk about that a little later on the show. But going into this with Odell out of nowhere getting traded out of New York, I mean, we even ran their Twitter poll, and I mean, 50% of everybody who voted was saying Cleveland is the one who won the deal here. The Giants, we don't know what they're really thinking. And obviously, to tell your fan base, we're going to get rid of arguably your biggest star player, arguably, between him and Barkley.
Yeah.
I mean,
it goes back and forth right now.
Yeah.
But to get rid of him, and obviously you're stocking up on draft picks, you're either eyeing somebody or you're saying, okay, we're going to fully go into rebuild mode, which I don't really see why you would hit the panic button per se like that when you still have talent. You still have, at the time, you still had Odell. Yeah. You still had Barkley. You have Evan Ingram, who's an emerging star at tight end.
And played better without Odell in the lineup.
Right. So maybe they feel that, Odell was, I don't want to say he was a distraction because I don't think that's the right wording. But if they're saying that instead of facilitating him and getting him the ball as much as they were, that they feel that other players could step up and contribute, it's a risky gamble.
Well, let's face it. I mean, Eli, when he's had that kind of boisterous, loud personality next to him, tends to fold and kind of, a very inward type of guy. He doesn't seem to do well with those personalities, whether it's Tiki Barber or Jeremy Shockey, that, when those guys go, he produces better. I mean, it was the same when they brought in Plexico, who at first was silent with the media. Never outlandish. And then one incident, bye-bye Plexico. Then Hakeem Nicks comes in, and it was the same thing. Was never a really clear-cut number one, but in the Giants system was a number one, Then he goes on to greener pastures, and now he's out of the NFL. So it's like maybe Eli does better without having a true number one wide receiver, almost a la, a Tom Brady-esque, who has never really played besides Randy Moss. Yeah. Had a true number one wide receiver. So, maybe it's more of a, with the pressure of getting the ball to Odell, maybe now that pressure's gone, Eli will be able to have a bounce back of a year. I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to go to the playoffs or Super Bowl, but I'm saying maybe he won't be so likely to be like, all right, I've got to force the ball into Odell and have as many interceptions as he has before.
It's truly a good question. And like now, there's no turning back. You win all in on turning the page, whatever that page is going to be. Because I still don't understand. Like, to tell your fan base,
they either, like you said, they either really want Kyler Murray, or there's somebody else in this draft that they really want, or they're setting up for somebody coming out of the draft in the next, say, year or two that like they're banking on coming out.
I mean, I'll give you my dream scenario. So my dream scenario is Haskins falls to them at 6. Then at 17, they're able to get maybe an offensive lineman or defensive lineman, just the best player available. That's really what I'm worried about. Then a second-round pick, fill a position, and then maybe in the third, fourth round, I like Boykin on Notre Dame because I like his size, and he reminds me a lot of Hakeem Nicks with the size and the hands and everything. So even a Hakeem Nicks who had Boykin who had a great 40 time, mind you, that surprised a lot of people at the combine. So a player like that, I would like to see. I know everybody likes Metcalf, and he had a great, day at the combine and everything, but it's like, I need to see it on the field, and Ole Miss necessarily wasn't, producing on the field. Although he had good numbers, I also think that a lot of those numbers came when they were getting blown out by, Bama and Auburn and teams like that. So I'm a little hesitant about that.
Yeah, he obviously with the combine, it covers a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad. And everybody buys into the numbers and how well they can jump and their hand size and all the all the intangibles. But it's like you have to look at the game tape and what they did on the field.
Exactly.
That's the biggest tell more than anything. I mean, everybody can have a good day when they're sprinting down the field and how much they can bench press, but that doesn't win you games.
Well, and when you talk about the Murray-Haskins debate, that's why I'm pro Haskins, because Murray came from the Big 12 where it's like throw, and they're getting, the pass defenses on the other side are giving up 400-plus yards because the Big 12 is just known for not recruiting great defenses. Haskins did it in the Big 10, where it is defense.
Also, let's not forget the college bowl game a couple years ago where what was it, Texas and Oklahoma, where they both scored like 60.
No, again, I get it. Baker came from the Big 12 too, and Oklahoma, and yada yada yada. But Baker's a different cat.
Yeah, Baker's different.
Baker's a totally different person.
Totally different game.
Haskins did it in an unfriendly quarterback system, being coached by Urban Meyer, who is known for not throwing the ball deep and trying to run the ball and quarterback option and read options. And Haskins still was able to produce, and they won games on his shoulders and not lost games because of him. Murray, I'm not saying that he lost games. I'm just saying that when you're able to throw, of course you're going to have ungodly numbers. It's no different than calling pass plays every time on Madden. It's just the difference is you need to be able to control and win games, and Haskins can do that.
Well, that's what the Giants are going to have to hope they land, if they can land a quarterback like that. I mean, arguably, final thoughts on this move before we take a quick break and get back into free agency when we come back.
Just a totally shocking move. I'm kind of with Coach on this one. The front office and the general manager can say they have a plan until they're blue in the face, but at this point, it doesn't make any sense.
I just find your identity right now. Figure out who you want to be. Giants, like, are we rebuilding? Are you starting from scratch? Are we doing this? Just whatever you're doing, just identify that now, so that way, into the draft you have a position and you're making moves, because the last thing I want to see happen is this be just a lost year so they can land Tua next year.
Find your identity, and I also want to add to that, commit to it. Don't decide halfway through and go, hey, you know what? Why don't we try this other way and 180 yourself?
This isn't the NBA where it's like the fall for Zion. This is win now and win well and win, and not just forfeit a year so you can land a quarterback.
Obviously, getting rid of your biggest star player for draft picks is always a tough thing to hear as a fan. Looking at where the Giants are, they have to commit one way or another. As we've said on the show here, they have to find their identity and stick to it. You can't waffle back and forth about this. You have to commit and go all in, whatever that direction is going to be. But to give up your star player, you have to be firmly believing what you're doing is going to make you a better team overall in the long run. As for Cleveland, they have made one of the smartest moves they could do, and a shocking move too. Something we don't really say with Cleveland.
No.
They have found a way to really upgrade their offense, and now are standing ready to make the next step into the playoffs and make a run. Who thought we were going to be saying this at this stage? Honestly, with the Baker Mayfield era, things are changing rapidly for Cleveland.
I mean, Kansas City, New England, Cleveland. That's going to be a fun AFC next year.
Absolutely.
San Diego.
Everybody stays healthy. They have to. And I agree with Coach. It's San Diego. I'm not calling them the LA Chargers.
Oh, God, I did it again.
I'm not calling them the LA Chargers. But let us know what you think of the Odell move. Hit us up on the hashtag ODPH. We want to know your thoughts on it. We're going to take a quick break, come back, talk a little more NFL free agency with you here on the ODPH podcast.
Hey, this is Rob Kacharik from the band 607, Autopilot Off, and Walking Distance, and you're listening to ODPH.
Coming back for the second segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. And, Pad, you have some more free agency moves we want to talk about?
There's been some moves, a lot of moves. I'm going to run through the list here of the major ones. It's not going to be every move, but it's some of the big ones. Most recently, you had Adrian Peterson re-signing with the Washington Redskins for 2 years, $8 million. I think that's a good move for him. He had very much a career resurgence, I guess you could say, with the Washington Redskins last year.
You could. I mean, obviously, he's just got to stay healthy, and obviously he's competing against Father Time because, I mean, he's at that age for running backs that usually start seeing the steep decline.
So he's also at that point in his career where the notification came up on my phone and it said, future Hall of Famer, Adrian Peterson.
Without Alex Smith there, that offense is going to be hurting a little bit. So, he's going to get heavy run time.
Oh, yeah.
I heard Chicago was in the mix too. I probably would, if I was AP, would have leaned to Chicago. But I mean, a return back to Washington, they got him on a great deal too, $4 million a year, so that's pretty solid.
You had Tyrod Taylor signing with the Los Angeles Chargers for 2 years. Jason McCourty is going to remain with the New England Patriots on a 2-year deal. This was a big one. Earl Thomas has signed with the Baltimore Ravens for a 4-year, $55 million deal, 24 of it guaranteed.
Paid.
This
Jerry Jones, your thoughts?
Yeah, this one threw me for a loop because I could have swore he was going Dallas.
I mean, that's all he said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and obviously,
although to be fair, Paul George said he was going to the Lakers in the NBA, and we saw how that worked out.
Right, but this one had just kind of a different vibe to it. Like, I think when he was originally talking about leaving Seattle, Earl Thomas was locked and loaded. I think that was probably the biggest no-brainer move.
Right.
And for Baltimore, especially losing Terrell Suggs to Arizona, C.J. Mosley going to the Jets.
Cut Weedle.
They cut Weddle, who's now with the L.A. Rams. Obviously, they got some cap space.
Oh, yeah.
And to go all in on Earl Thomas, I mean, it's a big move.
I mean, 24 million speaks.
Yeah. It's a huge move and a huge investment. So we'll have to see how that pans out.
You had Latavius Murray signing a 4-year deal with the New Orleans Saints, and as a result, Mark Ingram will sign formerly with the New Orleans Saints, will sign with the Baltimore Ravens for a 3-year, $15 million deal.
That's an upgrade for Ingram.
Yeah.
Brandon Bolden, after spending 1 year with the Miami Dolphins, will return to the New England Patriots on a 2-year deal. The Patriots are losing Cordell Patterson, who will sign a 2-year deal with the Chicago Bears. As the aforementioned Eric Weddle has signed with the Los Angeles Rams. This one doing Ken M happy. Cole Beasley is signing with the Buffalo Bills for a 4-year, $29 million deal.
Absolutely. Beasley and John Brown.
Yep.
Formerly from Baltimore and Arizona. This move I really like. I liked everything the Bills have done this offseason. And they've addressed the offensive line. I know they just signed the center from Kansas City.
Yep.
They've added a couple of different players. And with Beasley and Brown, okay, you have Beasley, who is a perfect slot receiver.
He's Julian Edelman, like 2.0.
Essentially. And you also have Brown, who's a burner downfield to balance out with Zay. So they have put some weapons in with Josh Allen to hopefully get him to the next level. I like what they've done, but I like the moves they've done to address the line more.
Edelman 2.0.
Well, he's going to
I mean, I watch the Cowboys because I'm a Giants fan here, guys. Beasley's terrible.
He's good for what they're going to need him for as a 3. As a 3.
Yeah, he's not. He's not going to put up monster numbers like 3 catches, 150 yards, but like he's going to have a boatload of catches for like short amount of yards.
No, in all respect, I mean he's a scrappy guy out there. So at worst he's going to run block for you very well, which is what he did in Dallas very, very well.
And that's all we need him for. I mean, we're not asking him to be the number 1 or number 2.
Right.
We just need him to come in, make plays, and especially for Allen as a number 3 to lean to a number 2 because he's still getting comfortable with his wide receiver core. A lot's going to be asked, but Beasley has worked. I mean, obviously, with Romo and Prescott, he's had his fair share of quarterbacks. And with Allen, that's what he needs is veteran wide receivers.
Well, they'll embrace him in Buffalo, too, because they'll love that Don Beebe comparison.
That's what I was just going to say. He reminds me a lot of Don Beebe. And obviously, he's got the mentality for Buffalo. I know he's been getting into it a little bit on Twitter. Which you have to read his Twitter to understand, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But I like the move, and I like John Brown actually coming to Buffalo too. I really like that move a lot, and they're doing things in the right way. So we haven't gone crazy. Obviously, I want to get to a failed trade. That happened with the Bills, but we'll finish up. We're going to definitely come back to that one in a little bit.
Yep.
So I'll save my thoughts overall about that for that part of the segment here.
This one not necessarily free agency news. I thought it's worth mentioning though. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to keep Ryan Shazier on a physically unable to perform list, so he will continue to get paid and will continue to get his medical insurance, so he can keep getting his treatments for his injury.
Kudos to them.
Yeah,
yes, class act.
Classy move by the Steelers.
As we mentioned, Terrell Suggs signed a 1-year deal with the Arizona Cardinals. Nick Foles, Super Bowl MVP, signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Upgrade.
Big time.
If Jacksonville is going to take that next step, Foles needs to bring that Philly magic there and make it happen. And with him and Fournette and obviously their wide receiver core just needed a more consistency play than they were getting out of Bortles.
The defense is still there. Ramsey's still there.
Yeah,
Jalen going to go up to him and be like, "Hey, sorry for everything I said."
I think that what this is going to be most interesting for is Philly.
Yeah.
Not only now, because now Wentz has not played a full year, and they were not very good with Wentz in the lineup.
No.
And Foles almost brought them back to the playoff. Well, I mean, he brought them to the playoffs, and it was a field goal away from, advancing to the NFC Championship game. So it's like, what is that going to do for Philly now?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting question, but like we say with the Giants, you have to find your identity and stick with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Wentz was going to be their guy.
Right, and that's the thing. So can you keep paying Folds Wentz money to keep him there?
no.
That's the argument.
The other thing with this is okay, you let Nick Foles go and Carson Wentz is your guy. We knew Carson Wentz was going to be their guy. We also know how quickly the Philly fans can turn on ownership in the entire franchise. If this doesn't work, they're going to get real pissed at, hey, you gave up a Super Bowl winning MVP quarterback for this guy?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to hear a lot of that.
Oh, it's going to get ugly.
Oh, it's going to get ugly, but that's going to be the pressure that Wentz is going to have in Philly. But he knows that. I mean, I think any player that goes to Philly knows Philly is a tough market. It is. They have very rabid fans. They're very passionate. They're going to let him know, and obviously the push to perform is going to be up there.
I think the difference, though, now is that when he was coming back from the injury from the Super Bowl, they were playing well prior to his injury.
Right.
Last year, with him coming back, they were not playing well.
Oh, no, they
so
weren't.
if he comes back from another injury and now Foles isn't there, Philly's going to kill him.
Well, that's going to be the question now, because whoever takes over as the backup,
Yep.
if Wentz is not ready to go or he starts struggling, they don't have the security blanket they had with Foles.
Nope.
Yep.
Even though, speaking of Philly, they did get a big offensive weapon.
Yeah, they got a big offensive weapon back. Tampa Bay traded Deshaun Jackson back to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Who, with Ryan Fitzpatrick, played very well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that will also help Wentz, too.
Yes.
I think his wide receiver core, that's going to help them.
I mean, they still had Jeffries and Aguilar who were playing well.
Right, but to add Deshaun back there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, now to have one more weapon, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to help him, especially as he's taking over the team as his. I mean, officially, because like I said, the biggest thing we're going to have to see now is Foles isn't there. You don't have the security blanket as the Eagles would have normally. So now what does Philly do? They go all in on Wentz, and they just got to make sure he stays healthy. And with his wide receiver core, obviously, it's going to take a lot of pressure off him.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yep. Then lastly, you have the Tyrann Mathieu Honey Badger signing a 3-year, $42 million deal with the Kansas City Chiefs.
That's a big upgrade for them on defense.
Yeah.
And cutting Eric Reed today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cutting Eric Berry.
Eric Berry.
And then lastly, but certainly not least, you have the interesting news that it looked like an all but certainty that Teddy Bridgewater would re-sign with the New Orleans Saints. According to the Boston Globe, amid uncertainty with the New Orleans Saints, he is meeting tonight as we record with the Miami Dolphins.
That might just be just a leverage move.
That could be.
Why would the Saints? I mean, they traded to get him, and he's learning behind Drew Brees. And we all know Father Time is creeping up on Drew Brees. I'm not taking a shot at him by any means.
Right. No,
Let's just face
fact.
it. It's a fact. The Saints need to start grooming Brees' replacement. Bridgewater is an adequate replacement. So to see him, get thrown into the situation in Miami.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'd be very beneficial for him.
No, I mean, look at Miami's history with the quarterbacks the last, decade or so.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing. And, I mean, they just got a new head coach. It's going to be a new system.
I mean, as a Giants fan, somebody that, talks about trading up to get a quarterback, if the Dolphins sign Bridgewater, I'm going to be very happy. So actually now I'm rooting for this in second thought. At first I was like, no, just go back to New Orleans. And now that I thought about it, no, Bridgewater, you should go to Miami and start.
Yeah, no, I'm expecting Miami to take a quarterback in the draft. I mean,
if they sign Bridgewater, I don't know if they'll be as...
No, if they sign Bridgewater, he's going to take over for Tannehill.
Right, exactly.
Right.
I don't think they're going to be as quick to jump or at least to trade up. They might just let, if somebody like Daniel, if Jones falls to them at, I think, like 12, I think they are. If he falls to them at 12, they might just say, you know what, we'll just let the kid ride the bench and not try to trade up.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I said, if I'm Bridgewater, I stay in New Orleans, but that's me.
I would too.
Yep.
But because, like I said, the Miami situation, you just don't know yet. New coach, new system, new
Messy.
everything. It's just, it's messy to put it mildly.
And then, of course, the two biggest ones before Odell Beckham Jr. got traded. Antonio Brown got traded, I should say, from the from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Oakland Raiders.
Talk about messy.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about this.
Get your popcorn.
So it was originally announced, Antonio Brown, and we've talked about his drama on the show numerous episodes.
So check the past episodes.
Yes, go through the past episodes. You can find them on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and many fine distributors. Point being is he's wanted to get out of Pittsburgh for whatever reason.
In the worst way possible.
Uh-huh. And then it was rumored that the Buffalo Bills were making a trade for him.
It was rumored at like 2:30 in the morning or whatever it was in the end of last week.
Yeah, I mean, it broke when I got home from the gym at 7. I was like, what?
And let me break it down to you. As the Bills fan in the room, I was angry about this. I don't get angry often. I was angry about this.
I will say this. The ironic thing is if that would have gone through, it would have been 10 years to the day that Terrell Owens signed with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, no, isn't that funny?
It was just
wild.
weird how that timed.
It was a weird time continuum. That's all I'm going to put it as.
You know, I want to know what the package was that Buffalo was giving up.
I fear it was the number 1 pick this year, number 9, and I almost want to say it was almost like an Odell Beckham Jr. trade. It had to be because
I don't know if they were offering the number 1. It might have been a 2.
I think it's the 1 because they're not talking about it.
Yeah, no, they're not, and that's what I'm interested about.
That's because I think for them to originally move, because originally, as we've talked about, the Steelers were looking for a number 1 pick for him.
Right.
And I know I was the one saying Arizona was going to trade it. I still think that was going to happen, but it didn't. But Buffalo, to make a move like this, it was going to require a lot to get him up there. I did not want him in Buffalo, and I will tell you why I don't want him in Buffalo.
Yeah.
If you can't work with Ben Roethlisberger, who is a proven quarterback that has won Super Bowls and gotten you in the playoffs how many times, how are you going to handle with an up-and-coming quarterback like Josh Allen, who is still finding his way in the NFL? I will be the first one to tell you he's struggling, but he's getting better every game.
I'll say I saw this rumor go down, and I was like, that's like shipping Jon Snow to the wall in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you just don't make this move. I think for Buffalo, yeah, it would have been a great move to upgrade your wide receiver core, sure. But you had to get Brown to buy in to working with a rookie quarterback. Now, if he can't work with Roethlisberger, who he's had established connection with, he's had career numbers, how do you think he's going to handle adjusting to a new system with essentially a rookie quarterback?
Yeah.
He's not going to.
I mean, so just to speak, I mean, then to flip him to Oakland for a 3rd and a 5th.
Yeah.
Well, and
that's what makes me lead that I don't think Buffalo was given a 1, but I think they were given something that was good.
But I argue this point, though. I still think they gave him 1, but then it came out, he was very vocal on social media saying that this was not true.
Yeah.
And then
it was almost immediately.
Yeah. Then suddenly the deal got flipped. And the Bills front office came out and they made a statement and said, we've decided not, this is not going to happen. So my guess is if they were having a problem and they were fearing, and this is only my speculation, that they were fearing that whatever team they sent Brown to, if he didn't want to go there, he was going to sit out. And then would that have any ramifications for their trade and who would want to take him? I think Pittsburgh got to such a point that they just said, okay, what's the most reasonable deal we can make, and let's do it.
Right, because as much as a headache as Antonio Brown can be, and we've detailed that multiple times, as a general manager, no matter what team it is, Buffalo, Kansas City, San Diego, whoever, this is a conversation or something that you at least have to explore, because if you're not doing your job right.
Mm-hmm. And it had to be. Because if you were going to send him, because it was rumored the Patriots had a better deal.
Right.
And obviously they weren't going to send him to their rivals.
No.
They were going to have to send him somewhere else.
That was established pretty early, was that there was no way they were going to send him to New England.
And like I said, it was heavily rumored that the Patriots had a better
deal. Would I have loved him in New England? God, yes. But I at no point did I ever entertain the thought of him in a Patriots uniform.
But if you're a GM and you were fearing that he would have had a situation like Le'Veon Bell, where if he didn't want to go there, he was going to sit out, to risk those draft picks and player assets that you were going to move to get him, you had to make sure that he was going to show up and play. He obviously said he wanted to go out west. He wanted to go to Oakland. He was very vocal that he wanted to go there. And I think Pittsburgh was like, okay, what's the best deal the Raiders are going to give us that works best in our favor? They did the deal for the 3rd and the 5th. And then here we are that he's now an Oakland Raider.
Well, and folks with good listening noted, Antonio Brown did do a Instagram live video before the deal got announced that, because the news with Buffalo had just come out and he said fake news, he did do a video on Instagram Live where he said, the news of where I'm going is coming very soon. And those who went back and watched the live video, because you can watch them for 24 hours on Instagram, listened and noted that somebody in the background of the room where he was said, you already have your silver and black gear.
And obviously, if he wanted to go there, and obviously everybody was agreement that was going to be the best fit for him, then that's where he wound up. And I think for the Raider Nation, they have got to be ecstatic.
Yeah, over the moon.
And
I mean, he's an older wide receiver in a system that isn't wide receiver friendly. So, I mean, we'll see. Oakland's still rebuilding.
Yeah.
Derek Carr didn't have a great year with John Gruden as a first-time head coach. So, it'll be interesting. I mean, they did trade away Amari Cooper, for a first-round pick. So, and Cooper was having a solid year, but wasn't having a great year in that system. So, it'll be interesting to see what Brown can do in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to have a good year. I think he is, because if he's happy and he's going to want to make a statement, because now he's the highest paid wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken,
I believe so.
in the league.
Yeah.
He's got a very happy contract he's with. He's got a team that he wants to play for. Everything's coming up roses right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's going to want to make a statement out there that this is what Pittsburgh gave up, and look what they're missing, and now I'm making Oakland a contender.
He's got to have somebody that can get him the ball, though.
Oakland does have to be carried because they are in the honeymoon phase of this relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if they start coming out 0-4 and he's getting less than 50 yards a game receiving, then we might see a little ruffling of the feathers. But it all depends on what Gruden's system is going to do. They still have 3 number 1 draft picks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Which is crazy. So if you're going to do some rebuilding, and what's not to say they're not going to get in the Kyler Murray race?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, rumor has it Gruden likes him a lot. So,
and obviously, if they're retooling that offense, and if you want to try going with a quarterback, I mean, Brown knows what he was going into. That Oakland was his preferred destination. He got there. He's going to want to ball out for him. And I think for the Raider Nation, they got to be ecstatic about it. And for Pittsburgh, they feel comfortable moving on.
Mm-hmm.
And Pittsburgh is one of those teams that they have gone through this before, where they've lost high-profile players, Plexico Burress, Mike Wallace, and they've found players to step up and replace.
there's already somebody waiting in the wings.
Yeah, Juju Schuster-Smith,
who played great in AB's absence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's not to say that they're not going to use a pick to go get maybe a DJ Metcalf.
Yeah.
I'm saying that might happen. I don't see them trading up. It just depends on how the chips are going to fall.
Yeah.
But I could see them going into another wide receiver and see what happens.
Yeah.
This is going to work out, I think, for both teams. I'm just happy, for the Bills, as the Bills fan, because I don't think AB would have been happy there. And I think that would just been disastrous for both parties involved. And like I said, he wants to go somewhere where he feels he can win and a quarterback's established. He obviously has faith in Derek Carr and the system they're doing out in Oakland, or what their future plans are.
It would have been interesting, though, to see if Josh Allen could have outthrown him, though.
I think he could have. I definitively think he could have. He has a cannon for an arm.
I know he does. I'm just saying, AB can run under a lot of throws.
And for the Steelers, I mean, they're doing the rebuilding. They obviously lost Antonio Brown, and they have ended the Le'Veon Bell saga, Pat.
Yeah, so Le'Veon Bell, of course, signed with the New York Jets for a 4-year, $52.5 million contract with $35 million of it guaranteed.
You know who wins this?
Le'Veon
Sam
Bell.
Darnold.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold wins this.
Yeah.
Because now he has way less pressure on his shoulders, and Le'Veon Bell will be the focus pretty much all year, and he can just be a quarterback.
So he's going to get fed the ball like nobody's business.
Oh, he's going to at least have Saquon Barkley type touches.
Uh-huh.
He has to.
Yeah, he does.
If you're going to invest that much money into him after all the drama from last season, you know what you're getting. So he had better be ready to step up in arguably a very tougher market.
Oh, yeah.
With the media.
Oh, yeah.
And Bell is going to have to produce. And especially for holding out. And, I mean, obviously the Steelers threw him a great package to stay and the whole contract. I mean, just to see him now, okay, he's accepted this offer. This is what he wants to do. He wanted out of Pittsburgh. He wanted to go somewhere else. He's now with the Jets. He's in the biggest media market in the world with New York. He now needs to produce. Is he going to do it and have the same success? It's debatable. It really is, because of how there's a difference in the line. You have a rookie quarterback essentially with Darnold. This is where we're going to kind of see, was this worth it in the end?
I mean, to be fair, the Jets, they had a running back by committee last year, and both running backs played above average, I would say. They were above par.
Yeah.
I mean, they both produced, Powell and Crowell played very well in spots, especially once one got injured, the other one had to step up and vice versa. I mean, they both got hurt at one point during the season. So I think now having the clear number one guy it's going to help Darnold know who's back there.
Yeah.
And he's going to know what he can get out of, his running back position, where before it was a question mark.
It is, and it can only help. And obviously, with the Jets moving forward, their defense is very solid. I mean, Jamal Adams is a star.
A stud.
Yeah.
Stud.
And the captain of that defense, in my opinion. And for Darnold, I mean, if you know you have a solid defense that's going to keep you in every game, and now you add Le'Veon Bell, who I think is going to have a chip on his shoulder to really succeed there.
Probably just a clear-cut number one wide receiver away from really making some headway.
Yeah, I mean, if they could find somebody in the draft, or if there's somebody in free agency that can really step up and be that decisive number one, I mean, they got a lot of potential. I mean, Robbie Anderson is not a joke for him.
No, I mean, by no means. I just don't think that he's the clear
He's
number one wide receiver.
One.
Yeah, I
in
think
my opinion, no.
If they can get somebody on the outside of him to get focus away from him and let Robbie Anderson just kind of get open in spots, and they get if they would have landed like an Odell or somebody like that, where they had an option that they could land a wide receiver and Darnold have somebody who could throw to. They'd be a scary offense.
Yeah, but I don't think the Giants would ever made the deal with
No.
that.
I'm just saying, a clear-cut number one, a guy that is going to get open 9 times out of 10.
Oh, no, I agree with you, but I'm just saying I don't think they would ever do it because they would never live it down in the New York papers.
Good God. That would be wild.
But overall, final thoughts on this year's free agency thus far, starting with Coach.
I mean, like I texted you guys, the NFL has a new nickname. It's newfound money right now because players are getting paid. And I think it's great for them. I mean, this is outside of UFC, MMA is probably one of the most dangerous sport you can play. So to see these guys getting money is tremendous, and it's good for them, and it's good for the league, and it shows that the league is well and healthy, which is, I think, what we all want.
I'm just glad we didn't go through another scenario like with Bryce Harper and Manny Machado in the Major League Baseball offseason, where with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, we're sitting here and it's borderline start of the season and they still haven't signed. I lived through that once with those two, and I was already frustrating enough as is. I can't do that a second time, and I'm glad they didn't.
This year's free agency thus far has been very interesting in a lot of different ways. We had an end to a lot of drama, which I think is great, because at the end of the day, it should be the drama on the field, not off the field. You had players that didn't want to play for their former teams. I think the biggest sigh of relief this year is with Pittsburgh, because even though they've lost Antonio Brown and they lost Le'Veon Bell, they are still in contention. They still have players that can make plays, and they're going to be a different locker room, which I think can only help them win. I think the overall winner, though, of free agency is Cleveland. They haven't been to the playoffs since the 80s and Bernie Kosar's days, and you can talk about the drive and the fumble all you want. And yeah, they did have flashes of greatness too in the mid-90s, but let's face it, since they've been back, it's been a struggle. The Baker Mayfield era is now fully in effect. With Odell Beckham Jr. there being the crowning jewel of the offense, the sky is the limit for what they're going to do. Are they going to drop 100 every game? No. But the one thing they're going to do is contend. And are they an early Super Bowl contender? As of right now on paper, you have to think so. For the other teams in the league, some did real hits and some did real misses. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. What did your team do this offseason? Did they improve during free agency? Did they downgrade? We want to know. Interact with us. Hit us up on the social media. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Brian Wolf from Fair City Fire. You are listening to ODPH, the greatest podcast in Binghamton.
Woo!
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and football was dominating a lot of the sports headlines, but it wasn't the only dominating story of the week.
Nope.
Coach, would you like to address?
Well, in a Instagram or a video captured by a fan outside, inside MSG after a game, Dolan leaving, and a fan is caught on camera yelling at him to sell the team, and Dolan responds with, that was rude. Why would you? That was rude. The fan responds back with something, and then Dolan hits him with enjoy watching them from home.
Yeah, of course, Dolan being the owner of the New York Knicks, and this was after another tough loss by the New York Knicks, who I should know are currently last place in the entire NBA with a record of 13-55.
Yeah, this was a very interesting reaction, and I know there's been a couple other instances, right, that have happened with fans interacting with players, and I mean, obviously, I don't have a lot of information on the Russell Westbrook situation,
right?
So I'm not going to address that on this episode. But with the Dolan situation, this one was not as clear-cut as we seem to think it was.
Right.
Well, I mean, so my take on it, I think it's probably a lot different than what a lot of people thought. I mean, yeah, obviously, growing up as a Knicks fan, especially, us being 90s kids, we saw the Knicks in the heyday before Dolan bought the team and kind of really transformed them as far as what he's done as being an owner. We saw the glory days of the championship runs and everything, or getting close. So, obviously, Dolan now has this stigma of being one of the worst owners in all of the NBA, just from a standpoint of what he's done for the Knicks since then. But my take on this is, I mean, the fan clearly had an idea of doing this, because why else would it be videotaped? So this was an ambush. And Dolan's reaction, while probably, gut reaction and very spiteful, because, I mean, obviously if somebody yelled at you, hey, you stink at your job, quit, your reaction's going to be heartfelt and full of emotion because you're going to be upset. So, yeah, this fan had a clear idea. Now, on the flip side of that, to say that you're going to kick him out of MSG is ridiculous. And the fact that New York, and Dolan in particular, has gotten a huge tax break from New York State for having the team in New York and everything, and now we've had, a congressman come out and say that they're going to cut that tax break and, force Dolan to have to pay on that and everything. It's never going to happen. So why even come out and try and play the savior of this? The grand scheme of things is what Dolan did was wrong. What the fan did was wrong. And now it's just a situation where an apology needs to be made one way or another, and just let the fan back into MSG and just let bygones be bygones.
It's very messy because, and I really feel Dolan made the wrong move on this whole scenario, because when you are in a position of recognition, like the owner of an NBA team, if you are someone attending that game, I'm going to guess 9 times out of 10 people are going to know who that is. Mm-hmm. Obviously there's going to be a couple cases where they don't know, but if you're in MSG, you know who he is. So, people are going to go for you, and especially with as bad as the team has been, the last decade, 2 decades plus, fans are not happy. Fans are going to say things. I think the smarter thing would to have been to take the higher road, not say anything. And I think the good story that was told was Stephen A. Smith told the story on First Take the other day, where he was telling him back and I think he said it was 2005 when it was the San Antonio Spurs and the Pistons in the NBA Finals, and he had just found out a family member of his died, and that he found out the family member died, and then 2 minutes later, hey, you got to go on SportsCenter and talk about the game. And he's standing there getting ready, and some fans are yelling and heckling him, and he turned around and flipped him off. And he regretted it. It's the only time he said he's ever done it in public, and he shouldn't have done it. I think it's similar to Dolan. Yeah, you're frustrated after the team lost. The team's lost a lot this year. You shouldn't have confronted the fan in that way, and you shouldn't have banned him from MSG for life.
I kind of look at this from a couple different perspectives. I mean, one, Dolan is a public figure. And obviously, he's going to react how he wants to react.
Right.
And I fully get that. If you feel you're being attacked, you have every right to defend yourself.
Yeah, fight or flight.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, we live in a day and age of the digital recordings of everything. Uh-huh. And if this is perceived to be a setup and a pre-planned thing, hey, let me do this to get on every single news channel.
Yeah, yell at him as he walks through the tunnel.
Yeah.
World star.
If this is a setup like that, I don't have an issue if Dolan wants to kick him out because he feels he's being set up and it's something in that variation. I do have an issue if he's feeling, because a gentleman said sell the team, that it's such a personal attack to kick him out for that reason.
Right.
But if you're coming in there and you're purposely trying to do something like that, where you got the camera out and you want to get that reaction, and you were trying to publicly, verbally attack.
I mean, basically humiliate him.
Yeah, if you're going in there to purposely do that, I don't really struggle as much. I don't. I do struggle, though, if the whole purpose is he's mad about what got said.
Right.
I do struggle with that.
That's petty.
It is petty,
Right.
if that is the case. But if the way is you are coming in with a cell phone and you're trying to get recording and you're trying to just purposely verbally attack somebody, that I don't have an issue with if that's where Dolan is coming from.
Right.
So, I mean, he was on the Michael Kay show, too, talking about it. And I will paraphrase the quote he said, because he was trying to address, and he was saying to the fan, hey, look what's going on here. The team is doing very well. You're making too much of what you read in the daily news.
Yeah, and he's, he was going to invite him back and let bygones be bygones, but then this whole thing came out that he might have planned it. But to the point of, the team isn't doing that bad, you read too much of the daily news. Excuse me, sir, I have some stats for you. The team's not doing so bad. You're in the bottom third of points per game. You're in the bottom third of allowing points per game. Switching over to assists, you're in the you're in last place in the NBA in assists per game. Over on rebounds, you are in the middle third of rebounds per game in the NBA. On steals, bottom third. On blocks, middle third. You look at the turnovers, you are in the top third of turnovers per game, which that's not something you want to be in the top third of.
So my problem really stemmed from how he was on Michael Kay, because here's the problem with Dolan, and a lot of, like, if you follow, like, New York Knicks media people, a lot of this happens because, like, guys like Frank Isola and Bill Simmons, Bill Simmons, but, like, guys like that who follow the Knicks have talked about this openly, like a Mark Berman who, quote unquote, spins things to make it look better for the Knicks, while Isola is the opposite, he doesn't spin things to make it look good for the Knicks. There's a lot of inner troubles with the Knicks as Dolan, as the owner, where he puts himself on this hierarchy, where there's a lot of paranoia inside that New York Knicks front office organization that has created a lot of issues. And it's crazy to see, because we didn't know this as, we didn't see this as kids, because at the time when, MSG, it wasn't owned by Dolan, everything was just, great and gravy. And then when Dolan bought the team, all of this started to kind of conspire, and it turned from him being, the owner to now being hands-on. I mean, the famous thing is that Carmelo Anthony trade was him.
Yeah.
That was him in the last hour saying, I want him, get him now at all cost. And look what it's done to the Knicks. So, I mean, my problem comes from what he said in that interview with Michael Kay, where he tried to spin things to his benefit, where it should have just been a position of, I admit my fault, I did wrong, but at the same time, this is what happened.
Well, back to the point, like, they're not as bad as you think. Really? At home, they're 6-26. On the road, they're 7-29. In the division, that's just the team. That's not the whole NBA. That's not just the conference. The division, they've won 2 games all year.
That's the problem with the spin, though. That's what they do.
But here's the thing, too. You're now going to enter an off season that you're going to try attracting free agents to come to New York.
Where you can potentially attract any free agent on the market that you want.
Right. So are you going to sit there and bash your own product if you're trying to get somebody to come there?
Right.
I get what you're saying, because I do agree. If you look statistically, the Knicks are awful.
Well, this is where it comes from what Bill Simmons said, because Bill Simmons said it too, that why would anybody, and this is what really started this whole issue, was Bill Simmons was like, nobody wants to go play for you. And, that's when Dolan was like, you're getting that leaked from the Boston media, from the Boston general manager. Danny Ainge is feeding you that stuff, and they want you to release that so nobody comes here. Now, yeah, that's a little, a guy who sits in higher power might sound like, and there's a guy on Twitter I like to follow, at Dolan Trump. I'm going to plug you right now because I love what you're doing, my man. That's kind of what it is. And it's scary to see the fact that, we are going into the biggest offseason as Knicks fans. Mm-hmm. And we've got free agents that might want to come here. But to me, as a free agent, I would be a little apprehensive about going to New York just because of the ownership.
Right. And especially an owner that, the team hasn't been good. You can look at the track record with trades and letting people go and what have you. And then you got an owner that is getting into verbal spats with fans in the stands, whatever the situation may be, that it's turning into such a balloon that it's, leading national sports headlines.
It's a tricky situation. I mean, that's the only way you can really describe it. Because, like I say, for my take on it is, if this was a premeditated attack, I have no issue with him kicking him out of the building.
Right.
But if you're going just based on the verbiage that was used, then it's a little extreme.
To me, there's a difference. Like, I would like an owner that is engaged with the team, that is there, that is watching, that is like active in meetings behind the scenes.
Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
A good example. There's a difference between a Mark Cuban who is getting into it with officials and league officials and refs and this. There's a difference between a guy like Mark Cuban who does that, which on some degrees, yes, he oversteps a little bit, but in some instances, I'm like, all right, you got to do that. You got to fight for your team. There's a difference between that and then looking at some guy who's saying sell the team and going, yeah, get out.
Like I say, it's a very slippery slope, no matter how you want to go down this.
Yeah, it's not a good look for a New York team that is trying to revamp itself.
No, and obviously this is going to play a factor. I mean, we don't know the ramifications that's going to happen. This is another, a casting a bad shadow.
I mean, the Oakley thing.
That was just going to say, because we had the Oakley situation from a while back too. That from a PR standpoint, this is bad. This is really bad.
Oh yeah.
So what impact this is going to have on free agency, we don't know. Just the immediate factor, though, of you have fans now going after the owner of the team, and like I say, the setup about it is where I'm focusing the attention.
Sure,
right.
And I agree. I full-heartedly agree with you.
Yeah,
because it didn't look good from the fan standpoint of, I've got this camera out and 1, 2, 3 scream it.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, you see the situation with Utah and that whole mess.
And that's a whole nother situation.
And that's a whole other situation. Like I said, I'm not ducking talking about that. I just don't have enough information to really get into it. Because if the situation is what it is, anytime that kind of ugly language is used, and I'm just going to put it politely like that, fans should be kicked out.
Well,
and it's not welcomed.
I mean,
period.
I mean, my feeling on that is the players put up with a lot. To not have the league stand up and say, all right, we need to now, all right, freedom of speech and all that stuff. But the product on the court is the most important thing. And these players need to be protected. And if they in any way, shape, or feel like they're not, that's not right from the league standpoint. Because, all right, yeah, it's the fans who get, buy the tickets and everything, but it's the players who play.
Yeah, it doesn't give you a right to go off and say ugly language. I'm just going to put it as ugly language.
No, it gives you have no right, just because you paid your $300 to sit in the front row, to say anything to any of them other than, thank you for coming to my city.
Yeah. If you want to keep it about basketball, keep it about basketball.
You want to heckle and everything, that's great, but keep it
You can voice your
correct.
You can voice your displeasure, but do it in a safe for work manner.
Right, exactly, because at the end of the day, these guys are all they're regular people. And if they feel offended, they have every right to say something back to you.
Yeah.
Why are they not allowed to defend themselves?
It's an interesting point, and I fully agree with you, and this is where the league is going to have to take a real hard look about incidents like this, because now we've had almost in consecutive days an issue where somebody has a camera out and there's language used. I mean, obviously, there's a very big difference of situations.
Well, this isn't even Russ's Westbrook's first incident in Utah,
right?
And I mean, then you got malice at the Palace. There's a precedent already set for what could happen.
Yes. So this is where the league needs to intervene and keep it, established between the fans and players and personnel that this is the code of conduct, and this is what we're going to have to do. And if you can't abide by it, then this is what we do.
It's like before a CYO game, we have to say the CYO prayer. Maybe they should have a announcement before the game that all fans please recite the code of conduct as fans.
But as fans, they should know where the line is.
Well, you would hope that they do.
You would hope. But this is where incidents like this are going to hopefully be teaching points. And like I said, if the language was used, and if that was true what happened in Utah, then that fan should be banned for life. That's something banning somebody for life for. I don't have any issue with that.
I mean, because the closeness and just the overall, feel that they have for the game as fans in the NBA, they have I'm struggling with my words here, but they have a way to get to the players way more than any other, sport in the world. I mean, the players behind the bench in hockey can, they're pretty close too. But I mean, literally in the NBA seating, there is no glass between you and the fans. There is no high rise.
Oftentimes they're ending up in the fans' laps.
Yeah, I mean, my God, in the way that the Lakers seats are set up at the Staples Center, it's fan, bench, fan.
Yeah, it's just something that to close this segment out. It's going to be something that as the league any sports league should really take a look at this when fan interaction is involving players and personnel. In the situation of New York, to bring it back full circle, if the situation is just based off the verbiage that was used between Dolan and the fan and saying sell your team, it's not really worth banning somebody from an arena. If it is a premeditated attack, then yeah, I could understand Dolan's point. And obviously this is going to impact them from a PR standpoint, from signing free agents to just how well fans feel welcomed at a game. This is going to be something the league is going to have to take a look at. And obviously, I think this is going to set a lot of precedent moving forward. And the NBA can set a great example for setting code of conduct. And obviously, where they go from here is anybody's guess. I'm just hoping it's a positive situation for all parties involved. But let us know what you think. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. What's your thoughts on the Dolan situation? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is the King of Lisle, Luke Visengard, Gladius 205 champion, and you're listening to the ODPH.
Coming back on the final segment of this edition of the ODPH, and we got to talk that local minute, Pad.
Of course, talking local minute, we got to talk Binghamton Devils news. They had 3 games this past week. First was a Friday home game against the Springfield Thunderbirds, where they lost by a final score of 3-2. They had a home game on Saturday against the Americans, where they lost 5-3, and then they traveled to the Americans on Sunday, where they lost by a final score of 6-1. Switching to this week, they have games this Wednesday, March 13th at 7 o'clock in Hartford against the Wolfpack. Saturday, March 16th, they travel up to Syracuse to play the Crunch. And then because of previously scheduled things at the Binghamton Arena, they will not be back home until Friday, March 29th against the Springfield Thunderbirds. More information, binghamtondevils.com.
And we got to talk some Binghamton Bulldogs basketball.
Oof. Oh?
Playoffs, baby.
What playoffs?
Playoffs. Winners yet again. They defeated Scranton 136-103. Chris Cartwright, the heart and soul of the Binghamton Bulldogs, 38 points, and Brandon Alexander dropping 21, and the dunk that is going viral.
Yo, that was a big dunk.
And
Rebound.
Let me say this. I was in attendance with some of the panel. Nostradamus was there, a couple other people. Dare I say this? You want to talk about an atmosphere that people are getting ready for the games. The crowd was electric, and the players were getting amped up. And I want to mention this, too, because Brandon Alexander was in the warm-ups, and he's yelling playoffs. He's getting the team going. If anybody was ready for that game especially, it was him.
Oh, we're going on Saturday, right?
Oh, we're going Saturday. Coach Duffy and I will be down there with a few other people. They're going to be playing Norristown, rather. It's the Norristown Knights, so I want to say Nottingham Knights. So that's where I was coming from. I'm not taking a shot.
That's what they're going to look like after Saturday.
Absolutely. Norristown is coming in for the Bulldogs. 7:05 start. Saturday the 16th, Davis College. You know how it's going down.
We're getting there at 6, Ken.
We're going to be there early.
Tailgate.
We haven't done that yet. It might be time.
It's a little cold.
Yeah, we got to talk to Jimmy Evans about that.
Yeah, it's a little chilly.
But either way, if you're not following the Bulldogs, what are you waiting for? Fox 40 is doing it. WBNG is doing it. Shout out to those guys. They were down there filming. BinghamtonBulldogs.com for more information. Get your tickets. Get there early. Make some noise. Cheer on those Bulldogs because they're doing some moves on the road to St. Louis. Let's cheer them on, folks. So let's start rounding those bases, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Pad, you want to kick us off?
Well, I'm going to talk a little baseball news because according to Ken Rosenthal of The Atlantic, it does appear that Major League Baseball will switch to a hard trade deadline at the end of July 31st. The way it's worked in years past is there is the trade deadline, which is July 31st, but then you have the waiver trade deadline where this whole funky thing, you can put a player on waivers and you can still trade them. No more will it be that way. It appears where you hit July 31st, players traded. After that, no mas.
Interesting.
And I'm all right with this. The MLB trade deadline is already one of my favorite days of the baseball season just because it's an entire week of who's getting sent where, who's thinking of trading, who's thinking of selling. And the build up to the 4 o'clock deadline is always fun where you always get that last minute, after 10, 15 minutes after 4 o'clock of the last minute deadlines that just snuck in at the end of the wire. I much prefer that to it's the Major League Baseball trade deadline with some added ones the weeks after.
Yeah, no, keep it a hard cap and make sure it's done and done.
Yep.
Going forward with that. Coach, what you got?
Back to basketball here. I'm going to bring up another local team, too, the Binghamton Bearcats.
Okay.
Who, in the American East Tournament, got an upset victory over Stony Brook on the road.
Ooh.
Who they had lost to all year long, and Binghamton able to pull up the upset win there as the 7th seed.
Good for them.
Shout out to them. Shout out to Binghamton University.
Unfortunately, falling in the semifinals to the number 1 seed, Vermont.
Ooh.
Tough break there.
Yeah.
Never easy.
Yeah, I mean, Vermont's a very, very solid team. I mean, they've got some scoring and some depth there. That is tough for Binghamton to match up with, and now Vermont goes on to play UMBC in the American East Finals Saturday at 11 o'clock.
I want to say I heard something was like Vermont hit like double-digit threes for the game, so it's hard to stop that kind of scoring.
Yeah, this kid Anthony Lamb, who plays like a 4-5 type style, a big kid, man. He's just dominant in the inside, and he can stretch the floor and shoot the three. So he's a really, really good, talented kid. So I mean, Vermont UMBC, be very interested to see how that goes. I mean, obviously UMBC, the Cinderella darlings of everybody last year, and now seeing if they can make it back to the tournament. And Vermont, trying to see if they can win at home.
It's going to be interesting to see down the stretch. It's going to be March Madness next week. We're going to be talking very heavily about that once the brackets come out. So stay tuned for that here on the ODPH podcast. So I guess I got a couple round the bases, because my original segment before everything was happening with James Dolan to talk a little basketball is to talk about, we were speaking about verbiage on that segment. LeBron saying he's now in playoff mode.
And where was it before?
Yeah, exactly, because unfortunately...
And where is it now?
The Lakers seem to be outside looking in. Obviously, I think they're the 11th seed last I saw.
Yeah.
And it's not looking like the dream season is happening this year.
No.
Things unraveled quick. Injury, I mean, Brandon Ingram down for the year. Alonzo Ball now down for the year. Injuries plague this team.
Did anybody see this happening when he first originally signed?
This bad of a slide? No. Did I see them making the playoffs? Maybe. I figured they might slide in the 7 or 8 seed, but I didn't see this kind of a slide coming. No.
I mean, start the year when they signed all those talent, all the players, and they were talking about keeping the ball, having LeBron not have to be a playmaker. I thought it was interesting from that standpoint offensively, because the status quo has always been put shooters around LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it would be an interesting approach that might actually work. So I thought they would make a 7th or 8th seed, but no.
They would have made the 7th or 8th seed had there not been that 2-3 week stretch where LeBron didn't play.
Yeah,
that
LeBron going down just killed them.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's going to be a tough road for them, obviously, finish out the rest of the season. And then next season with free agency, who knows what's going to happen. Anthony Davis might be, rocking some purple and gold.
Kawhi Leonard already said that he doesn't, his people are saying that he doesn't want to go play in L.A., so
I will say this, though. I have enjoyed the articles people have written about, what the world was like the last time LeBron did make the playoffs. For those who don't know, that was 2005. That was a long time ago. I do love those articles.
That's 14 years, man. That's wild.
It's absolutely wild to finish that. I mean, just to think that we might have a LeBron-less playoff season.
Yeah.
This is absolutely crazy. And we're running out of time, so I'm actually going to take my UFC takes to the parlay points. Check it out on OchoDuroParlayHour.com. Make sure to read up on that. I've got some UFC news to talk about, because that's all we got for this week. So for Coach Duffy.
I will see you guys Saturday night at Dog Pound 2.0.
For Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, #ODPH podcast. We'll see you next time.
Clever.